Welcome to Via The Grapevine, proudly brought to you by Tony DaCosta of Liquor City Claremont, and offering you the chance to learn more about wine, the masters behind them, and even which wines to collect. My guest today works for the world's most admired wine brand in South Africa. Pieter Badenhorst, Nederburg's White Winemaker, grew up in the scenic Boland town of Tulbagh, surrounded by those majestic mountains and those fertile valleys boasting pristine vineyards. Welcome to Via The Grapevine, Pieter.
Thank you, Guy. What an absolute pleasure to join you and your team and your listeners. Wow, it's been an interesting harvest again this year, and but just looking forward to chatting to you this morning.
Thank you. Well, first off, let's start off by congratulating you and your entire Nederburg team. It's the highest placed of just 2 South African wine brands to appear on the list, voted for by an academy of over 200 global industry experts. This is not just South Africans at Sommer Smaak Kabichi Nederburg. This is global experts, and it's really known as a definitive list of the world's best wine brands. It's compiled annually by UK-based trade publication Drinks International, and it's the 5th time Nederburg features on the esteemed world's most admired wine brands list. So I guess it kind of proves your brand ethos of there's no place for complacency, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. Not even during a global epidemic. Wow, I will never forget last year, Friday the 27th of March. It was the first day of hard lockdown, and yes, we spent the previous day making sure that we got our permits in place and everything. And that very next day, we came to the cellar. That Friday, the roads were so quiet. It's like normally I drive on the N1 a bit to get to Nederburg. The roads were dead quiet. There was almost nobody on the road. And we came into the cellar to make sure that we go out with a bang instead of a boom. So, and again this year, I mean, we were smack bang in the middle of harvesting at night. I mean, we are 230 years old, Guy, and it was the first time in our history that we started taking in grapes at night. To make sure that we combat wave 2 and to split our teams into 2. So, I mean, that's, no place for complacency, even in crazy times like that, like we're in.
Yeah, and it really speaks to the adaptation that all wineries have had to make. I mean, I think a lot of people think about, the smaller wineries and, shame, they're not going to be able to make it. And there's, but as you've just mentioned, for the first time in 230 years, you guys have had to adapt the way that you harvest, and it's affected you in a big way as well. Let's hope that it doesn't eke back up from level 2 now, hey?
No, for sure. Please not. Level, obviously, let's avoid wave 3 by social distancing and washing our hands and doing the right thing.
Let's get to know Pieter Badenhorst a little bit better. I'm guessing that growing up in a town surrounded by vines is what led to your fascination and career in winemaking.
For sure. Yes, you can just imagine. I mean, as a small boy walking into those cellars, smelling those fermenting juices and getting to taste just a little bit of that moss. You can imagine, and that plus the fact that a yeast cell, we need microscopes to see a yeast cell, and that is what's responsible for taking that grape juice into wine. I mean, that's always fascinated me. Plus, one of my family members actually mentioned a number of or the salary of winemakers, and that certainly conveyed me or swung me into the winemaking industry. And then, funny story, it took me 14 years, Guy. It took me 14 years to break through that number. And when I confronted that family member, he just burst out laughing. He said, well, no. That's the owners of the big wine farms. That's their salary, not the winemakers necessarily. So I got into it falsely believing I'm going to earn the big bucks. But you can just imagine, I'm a winemaker, for Pete's sake. I will do this for free. So no, I stayed in because I'm just so passionate about the wine industry.
I had a conversation with someone last week, and I had to remind them of the old wine joke, because they were saying to me, you know, I want to get into making my own range of wines. What do you think? How do you think we can do that? I said, well, are you a billionaire? Because you need to start so that you could be a millionaire.
Exactly. Yeah, you start with it. How do you make a small fortune? By starting with a big one, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Your experience working harvest in Germany and France must have also influenced your philosophy on winemaking. Can you share some highlights that you learned along the way?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, gee, I did Germany that was back in 2008. The cellar was out on Trout Wine. It's located in a very small town, Lonsheim, in the Rhineland-Pfalz district or region of Germany. It's about 60 kilometers southwest of Frankfurt. Now, even though the town is very small, the cellar is massive, massive, massive cellar. I mean, we harvested 7 days a week for 5 weeks non-stop. And at peak, we took in probably like 1 million liters per day. So talk about no place for complacency. There was absolutely, it was high volume, but unlike Nederburg, yeah, at Nederburg, we've got the best of both worlds. Yes, we do the more volume-driven wines, but we also get to play with small, limited volume wines, where we're trying to blow the judges away. And I'm talking 500 liters, as small as 500 liters, guy. That's the kind of wines that we get to make in between the volume-driven ones. And then back in 2019, I had the amazing opportunity to go to France, and this time it was exactly the opposite. I was in a very, very small cellar in a little town called Verneuil-sur-Brenne on the banks of the Loire River. It was absolutely idyllic. I just spent a week there, but the impact was immense because I got to pick grapes with the owner. I helped him offload, him and his team. I pumped wines around. I filled barrels, and I was in heaven. I was absolutely in heaven. Now you can just imagine, and let's not kid ourselves. You can ask any winemaker. The higher up you climb on the ladder, the less you get to do of the pictures they show of winemakers, what people believe we do. So I don't get to do that often anymore. So for me, just to be hands-on was absolutely special. It took me back to my roots and why I got into this.
I can only imagine. I wonder sometimes if any of the students from abroad that come to work, and you'll be able to answer this because you've obviously had some of them come and work harvest with you.
Yes.
As excited about working with someone like yourself and with a brand like Nederburg as you get excited going across.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, again, like I said, at Nederburg, it was actually in 2008 that I worked with. It was a guy from Sicily, a guy from Germany, and a third one from Romania. And I can just remember the stories they told us, and it was special to spend time with those guys. Hence, me going to Germany later that year.
Okay, got you. So we skip ahead to the fact that you now head up the white winemaking team at Nederburg. And I think we need to maybe specify that's the white wine. It's not the white winemaking team.
Please never ever call me a white winemaker. No. I actually got kicked back once. I said on my email signature at the bottom, Pieter Badenhorst, white winemaker Nederburg, and a friend replied, he says, how dare you call yourself a white winemaker given South Africa's political background? So exactly. I try and refrain from, I never try and use that word, but yes, I do specialize currently in white wines, but I've had the privilege of making both whites and reds over my career. That spans about 18 years now, so I've done both. So I can talk with confidence on both.
So give us some insight into the production that you oversee at Nederburg of just the white wines, for example.
Well, okay. Well, my typical day during harvest season will be well, let's say in a week, I might end up going into vineyards, and this is, I'm getting in the bucky with my viticulturist. The two of us, we drive to the vineyards, and we literally get to taste grapes. Like I said previously, I don't harvest that much anymore, but I do get to taste these blocks, and we drive around the block, tasting every single corner of the block. And then we plan our week in terms of take-in of grapes. And literally your daily take-in of grapes, we're going to harvest this 10 tons of Sauvignon Blanc today, tomorrow, a bit of Chenin, tomorrow, the day after, a bit of Chardonnay, and keeping those lots separate, making sure that goes, we clean up the juice, and then we go to fermentation tanks. So my job entails picking the yeast that we're going to use, because, I mean, you get hundreds of different types of yeast. So based on what worked previous years and just my experience as a winemaker, we'll pick between myself and my assistant, we'll pick yeast types. It's daily tasting of those fermenting tanks. And then as they start getting dry, it's just batching some of them up and keeping your best tanks separate, your small lots separate. So a lot of tasting, a lot of, and paperwork as well. I mean, you can just imagine everything that comes with that, and to keep HACCP and BRC and the FSI and all those acronyms of quality checks, keeping them happy.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we've clarified that you're not just a white wine maker, that you're a winemaker who makes white wine.
White wine maker.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get to the wines that we're tasting today, and what a fantastic lineup. You can see them here behind me. We'll start off with this Rosé 2020, and I'll hold this label a little closer. Look at this. This is just absolutely beautiful there. Tell us about the choice of grapes in here and what each one brings, Pieter.
Well, the Grenache is, I think the Grenache brings the elegance, your candy floss and rose petals and flowers, whereas the Carignan brings a bit more of the berries and just a sort of a little bit more palate weight. I describe this wine as very, very elegant, but if you don't have just a tad of palate weight, it's going to fall flat, especially later in here. So that's why we've got both cultivars in there.
Beautiful color to it as well. It really is. And are they? I mean, is this something that you do year in and year out, is stick with the Grenache and Carignan, or do you experiment and maybe only do a particular depending on harvest, particular grape depending on how the harvest goes?
No, what might change, well, this 2020 was the first time we actually swapped the cultivar around to be more Grenache driven. But the percentage from year to year might vary depending on the vintage. But we're going to try and purely on, let's call this a volume thing. I think the Grenache is the better cultivar to start off with. But like I said, the percentage from year to year might differ a little bit.
Sure, I see what you mean by that lovely weighted palate. It's absolutely delicious. And then you've got that wonderful acidity that builds down the side of your palate, drives you back to the glass for another taste. There's that candy floss flavor comes through, but in a savory note. It's not like a super sweet, you know, when you were a kid and it burnt your tongue because it was so sweet. It's not like that. You get that flavor of it, but it's got a savory note to it. How do you get that? That's incredible.
Right. Exactly, like you said. I mean, that's the Carignan's job, to just take you from that sort of tutti frutti and just take it down or take it up a level, or sort of in terms of impact. And
then and this is a wine that is, of course, very popular, I imagine, for summertime. But I'm also finding that some of the, and not necessarily yours, because yours is not that terribly sweet, but some of the sweeter rosés are actually okay for a winter as well, because you drink it pretending it's muscadel. It's just the cheaper version.
Oh, for sure, yeah. No, definitely. Look, I've just I was in Durban last week. It was awesome. Actually, my first trip back into the trade and flying again in a year and a half. I flew back. I was there still on Friday afternoon, and it was such a hot summer's day. And we had this wine there with a group of people, and it went down like cool drink, man. And I flew back that night and touching down in Cape Town, and it was raining. So yeah, and then, like you said, then you need to maybe adjust your drinking habits a bit. But today, again, it's looking like a beautiful day, and if it's warm enough, have some of this over with your summer lunch or with your lunch, and the alcohol is nice and low, so enjoy.
Yeah, it is absolutely beautiful. Thank you. We'll move on to the Edelruhr 2019. It's been pleasing crowds since 1976. And apparently a blend of grapes, not from Nederburg itself. Is that correct? You've gone with cooler climate grapes?
Yeah, Guy. Look, we have the Nederburg wine farm as well, where we get grapes from. And the nice thing is actually with that, with the rosé, most of that grapes actually come from the farm, both the Grenache and the Carignan. And we just topped it up with a little bit of grapes from almost like very close to a neighboring farm, like within 20 kilometers from the farm. But we do have the opportunity for Nederburg, or the luxury, call it, to buy in grapes from all over the wine producing areas. Darling, Elgin, Robertson, even Ceres. I mean, we're buying in grapes from one of the highest vineyards in South Africa. We literally get snow in the vineyards there, and everything in between. Obviously, historically in and around Paul, a lot from Stellenbosch. So it really builds in complexity into our wines. It buffers us against bad seasons, or if a certain area might have a bit more rain or too much rain, we can always shift it towards an area that wasn't as affected by either drought or rains or whatever the case might be. You can just imagine we have to, like you said, I mean, going back to 1976, we have to get this right, and the consistency is very, very important there. So having all those vineyards available to us is pretty special.
It's a lot of work to keep consistency, as you mentioned, from 1976, and I suppose you would say that that's one of the fundamental factors that's made this such a popular wine for so long, is that consistency.
Exactly.
Quick question. I don't know if you can see it. Well, you've got a bottle there. What does this mean on the top of the bottle? These little insignia that's here. What are those? I hadn't actually noticed them until this morning.
It's basically it's about the discovery and the vision and the unity of our wines. So obviously scan the barcode and go to our website and try and follow those guidelines on there, and it'll take you on a nice journey.
Yes, sorry, I'm deaf. I see it now on the back of the label there. They're highlighted what they are, and exactly. I like that. I think that's fantastic that you've got a QR code on there, because it really opens up the world of Nederburg, and this was something that I was trying to suggest to somebody once upon a time for a certain publication. I thought it would be great if they offered this on bottles, because oftentimes you're sitting somewhere with people and they say, oh, what makes this wine so special? If you've got a little QR code, you can quickly scan it, and as you say, you can discover, you can get the vision, etc.
Look, Guy, sorry, it's all about the story behind the story. Hello, your cat. Hello, little kitty.
This is Mac. Mac loves to be a part of Via The Grapevine.
Of course he does. He's a beaut. Oh my word.
Really?
Yeah. Look, it's all about the discovery and telling the stories behind wine, and the wine label is just way too small to get all our stories in there. So let's take people on a journey on the internet, and it's awesome to have the technology available to us.
I have to tell you that I absolutely love this wine, and I know it's relatively young. I mean, 2019, but it's drinking so beautifully now. You certainly get those nuances of I was getting, initially I was getting a lot more cigar box, and then it kind of moved into black fruits. Now I've kind of lost the cigar box a bit, but it's ripe plums, blackberries on the nose. On the palate, you've got that lovely acidity. There's a lovely fruitiness that's getting you to go back. And obviously that also tells you that it's got some time that it can mature as well. What would you say? How long would you recommend that this matures?
There's just a question. I think it's probably winemakers get the most. And like I said, I've been in the industry now for 18 years. That must be the single most, the question that's been asked the most to me is how long a wine will last. Now, I always recommend, sorry, Guy, can I just, sorry, we've got a blower going in the background here. Can I just get the guys to stop it? Can you hear that? You can probably hear it going on and off, on and off.
I can't hear it. So
no.
I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay.
If it's bothering
you,
you, 100% tell them, but I can't hear it.
Okay, 1 second, sorry.
No problem at all. And that's the wonderful thing about Via The Grapevine. Absolutely organic. Pieter Badenhorst, our guest today from Nederburg Wines. And of course, we're talking through 3 absolutely delicious wines. We've started off with the Rosé, Carignan, Grenache Carignan. And then we're on to the Edelroot now, which is a beautiful blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. And we'll wrap up with the 2018 Cab Sav as well. And really, I would recommend to you that you get yourself a bottle and you take your time with each one and really enjoy the nuances that each one offers. And as we've mentioned, the nice thing about these labels is that there's a QR code that you can scan and you can learn a little bit more. And you were saying, Peter, that I have asked you one of the oldest questions in the wine book. How long do you think I can keep this for?
Oh, for sure. Look, can I answer you give you my version of this? Just buy a case of 12. Yes. Then you start opening them one by one. Let's give it at least about 4 years, and then you start opening it. And what I tell people, look, if you're serious about this, the fact that you've asked the question tells me that you are actually a little bit more serious about this and you're not planning on quaffing all of them within the next 6 months. So wait about 4 years, open a bottle and give it a score out of 100 or out of 20. It doesn't matter what your scoring system is. Your scoring system. Don't try and be fancy about it. Just give it a rating out of 20, say. And if you've given it 16 or 17, wait 6 months, open another bottle, and try and not look at your previous score. Try and forget that, and then score the wine again. And if it's 17 again, then let's say it goes up to 18, then you know it's on the way up. You wait 6 months. If you give it 18 again, you know it's on the plateau, and this is how you like it. Because I just don't know your palate. I don't know what you like. So I can't tell you if you like older vintages or and how you like your wine. So do the little experiment yourself. Open a bottle every 6 months, score it. And if you realize that it's hit the plateau, it's not improving anymore, finish the box. Invite all your friends and finish the box.
I love that answer, Peter. I think it's one of the most unique answers I've ever had to that question, because I think most winemakers are so busy that they say, oh, you know, it's 3 to 4 years, 5 to 8, 10 to 12, whatever. But I love your answer there in terms of your palate is unique. Each person's palate is unique. So test it. I know that one of the winemakers from Stellenbosch, she did tell me the same thing about buying a box of 12, and then she said 1 a year. So I like yours though. It's shorter. You don't have to wait for 12 years.
Hey, it's 2021, and if there's one thing that we've learned from this terrible pandemic is to live in the moment. I mean, yes, let's not kid ourselves.
Yep, we might not be here.
Let's live in the moment.
You're spot on.
Exactly.
This 2018 Cabernet Sauvignon. There we go. Have a look at the label. That is just absolutely beautiful. And this is the 2018. It's not all that it seems, is it? Because it's not just Cab Sav grapes in here.
No, definitely not. I mean, we all know, or winemakers, we're allowed up to 15% of any other cultivar in there. and by law, we are still allowed to call it a Cabernet. We don't have to declare the other max 15% on this wine. So that is, let's call it our little, as winemakers, that's where we get to play a bit and get to work with other cultivars and then build in a little bit of complexity into our wines. Now, this specific blend, the 2018, is 90% of Cabernet, and the other 10%, I'm not going to tell you, Guy. I'm not going to tell anybody because that is our trade secret. But it is other cultivars. I mean, like I said before, we get to buy grapes from different areas. That already brings in a bit of complexity into our wines. And imagine then we get to play with other cultivars in here as well. Maybe a bit of, oh, you pick it, Rubinay, or a Tannat, to just a hint of darker color, or anything else that we believe can just improve and enhance the wine.
Even one of your white wines might go into there as well. A quick question on that 15%. Is it 15%, the number 15 and upwards that you have to declare, or is it up to 15 and then if it's 16%, now you must start declaring it on the bottle? I'm asking because I was having this conversation with someone the other day about it. I thought it was 10%.
No. It's definitely, it's 15%, but you're and thereafter you cannot by law still call it a Cabernet. If you're adding another cultivar, a Merlot, like the Ile Red, then you need to start declaring that this is actually a blend of Cab and Merlot. And then there's all kinds of rules that I'm not going to try and get into now when you start adding third cultivars and stuff like that. But in theory, up to 15% of anything else, and by law, you are still allowed to call it a Cabernet.
I love that.
Sorry, the same goes, guys. Sorry, the same goes for the vintage. We are claiming this to be a 2018, so by law, we are obliged to have at least a minimum of 85% of that specific vintage 2018, and you're allowed to add anything up until 15% of another vintage on this one.
Either younger or older, you can play. Yeah,
and that's winemakers by winemakers' discretion.
that's the Spur sauce. That's your secret that you don't share.
The 11 herbs and spices.
Yeah.
Let's call it 15 herbs and spices.
I'm already getting, obviously because it's a bit older, I'm getting a little bit more of a reticence on the nose. So it's not jumping out at you. It's really inviting you in. You've got to give it some proper nose action. The one thing that I am picking up is and it's a wonderful aroma because it's a blend between brand spanking new and old. My mother used to do leather work, and I'm getting that kind of like she's had the leather for a year, and it's in that I'm getting it. Yeah.
Again, that's talk about those different layers, and it just keeps on bringing you back and back and back, and it's never ending. And I love that about our wines.
There's a lot of management that's gone into this, into creating this wine, I believe, this one in particular. A portion of the wine was matured in a combination of first, second, third, and fourth full oak barrels. Why don't you give our viewers an idea of what each type of full offers this wine?
Yeah, look, a first full, per definition, is the first time that barrel receives wine into it. So it's brand spanking new wood. So you can just imagine the impact of that barrel in terms of the wood component is going to be quite substantial. And you will never, depending on the type of wine that you're aiming to make, you would never or very rarely use only first full barrels because it might be overpowering. Then when you get to your second full, the impact is just a little bit less. The same with the third full, and probably on I would say anything between a third and a fourth fill, the wood impact it starts to taper down. And I would, let's for argument's sake, call it zero wood impact. The impact on that is just your slow oxygen pickup on that barrel that you would have. That adds a bit of complexity to the wine and just helps the wine build a bit bigger. That oxygen and, like I said, slow oxygen pickup helps with some of the chemical reactions on the wine, and that's what you need from a third and fourth fill barrel, not as much the wood impact, Guy.
Got you. That's fascinating. So first fill, second fill, you're going to be getting some wooded enhancements, and then from, as you said, third and fourth, it's minimal, but it's allowing a slight degree of oxygenation in there just to feed the wine. Pieter, besides the award-winning wines, what are some of the other reasons? And I know there's a lot, so good luck. What are some of the other reasons to visit Nederburg Wines?
Oh, wow. I've actually got a little booklet actually also, because talk about the Nederburg experience. And
Yes.
yeah, we've got our award-winning wines. We've got a vintage vault where you can taste some of our older vintages. Like I said, I mean, we spoke about how long can you age a wine for. Now, look, we're doing it for you. So let's age wines for you, and then you can come and taste them here. We've got obviously with the restaurant and our food, we've got family-friendly picnics. We've got our 5 senses wine and food experience. We've got the bubbly and oyster pairing. We have a wine blending experience where you can actually come, and we've drawn samples from the tanks, and you and some of your mates can come and create your own blend if you so wish. That's pretty special, and that's
very, very special. And I would recommend that to anybody that's trying to learn a bit more about wine, because my goodness, you learn a lot on that particular day.
Exactly. Weddings, conferences, meetings, and special events, and then just the heritage. I mean, come and see our manor house. It's quite special. I'm actually sitting in the manor house now. I've stepped away from the cellar just to get a bit of quietness. So yeah, it's awesome. You will love this manor house. It is actually pretty special.
I feel a bit bad because I'm going backwards again, but this sometimes happens. We didn't really visit the palate on this Cab Sav, and I just need to share a little bit on it, because I think it's absolutely phenomenal how somebody that was, as a young wine taster, I was always intimidated by Cab Sav. It was too big for me. It was too bold. In fact, I remember one of my first memories of a wine that overpowered me was the Nederburg Baron. And I just, terrified me, because I wasn't, my palate wasn't matured enough. And to now sit here much older and sip on this Cab Sav, the palate's matured, but this wine is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I'm not going to ask the secrets in there, as you've said, that's the trade secret, but this is not something that has to be paired with food. This is something that can really be savored on its own. It's got a wonderful balance between depth of flavor, but a lightness of being, if that makes any sense. I don't want to sound too ethereal and philosophical.
No, but look, we do need to make wines for the broader public. It's called, and for a lack of a better word. So this needs to be palatable. We're never intending to win the absolute pinnacle of Cabernet awards in the world. Guess what? We've actually done that with our 2 centuries Cabernet. We've won the best Cabernet in the world, but that is 100% barrel aged in, like we spoke about, the first, second, and third fill barrels. That's where we're trying to blow the minds of the judges, and we've done so. But this should be and is a more approachable Cabernet. And now going into winter, sitting in front of a fireplace, just having this even before you start eating.
Absolutely phenomenal. I've got to stop raving about them so we can wrap up. Pieter, some quick questions just to end with. And again, just a chance for us to know you personally a little bit better. You can give one-word answers, or you can give more if you fancy. The first question I have is your favorite varieties to work with.
Sauvignon Blanc. Easy. There's so many top class Sauvignon Blancs in South Africa, and if you get to again make a top class Sauvignon Blanc, that is pretty damn rewarding. And not to boast, but I have made Sauvignon Blanc that was voted the best wine in South Africa, best by the Michelangelo International Wine Awards. So can you just imagine, out of all those top Sauvignon Blancs, that's why I held it in it's got a special place in my heart.
Sensational. And I'm glad that it's a white wine, because as the white wine maker at Nederburg, it'd be a bit awkward if it was.
You're not going to let this go, Guy. You're not going to let this go.
Your most memorable wine tasting experience?
Wow. I'm going to betray my country now a little bit, but just purely on impact, I was, like I said, in 2008 in that, worked in a massive cellar, but I've ended up, I wanted to take my boss out to dinner, and I agreed to pay for him and his girlfriend at the time. And the table just grew and more people joined. I wasn't aware that we're going to end up 20 people at the table. And can you just imagine the billing at the end? And because we're in Germany, it started becoming complicated, and I just offered to pay for everybody. Long story, but I paid the entire bill. And it ends up, and at the end of the table, I didn't even realize it. There were two winemakers sitting there, and they took us to thank me or whatever. They took me into their cellar, and wow, Guy, they opened up Rieslings dating back to about 30 years, and I was blown away. And they just kept on opening it, and I almost tried to stop them, like, guys, just stop. But they just kept on opening vintage after vintage after vintage to try and blow my mind, and it actually did. It was quite special.
Very rewarding, especially given that intern salary that you just completely blew on one day. Sure.
Again, complicated story.
Your wine vault, do you have an opportunity for people to taste white wines that old in the vault? Because I can't imagine that anywhere in South Africa is really held on to white wines for as long as you tasted in Germany there.
Yeah, not necessarily that old, but we do, up until 10 or 12 years, I must actually go check the records, we do have 12-year-old whites in the vault. So just come and just come and look for yourself and see what you can find there. It's pretty special.
I think you've answered this question already when you dusted your shoulder, and congrats. Wonderful. Absolutely. Awesome to be lauded by a community like you were. But so maybe I should say, besides winning the best Sauvignon Blanc, what's your greatest achievement as a winemaker? And besides affording to pay for a table of Germans, it's quite a lot. You've got a lot to choose from.
No, I do. It's like, yes, can I ask people to pick their favorite child? It's very difficult to pick all of them, but I must say, just wow. This is going to sound like I'm fishing for brownie points, but to take my wife with me to a Veritas Awards, and when they call your name, or when they call the brand Nederburg, and you get to walk up and I look back at her face and just to see how proud she is of me, and the same goes for my family. My father-in-law is by far my biggest fan, and I got to take him to that awards function as well on his 60th birthday, and literally on the exact day of his 60th birthday, and his 10 years later again, I got to take him as well, a day after his birthday, and just to look back when you're walking up to fetch your medal and see the pride on their faces, that's special. That really, really is special to enjoy these awards with your family members.
No, you're spot on, and I understand that completely. Yeah. And thank you also for now, my father-in-law used to quite smart me because I get wine to taste, but now he's heard your story. What am I doing? What am I doing with this one? take me on my 60th. Last question, Peter. What's your hidden talent? Something we don't know.
My voice. But that's probably not that hidden, but I've been known to break out in song and not just in the shower. Hopefully next time we can do this a bit more in whether, just so you can hear my voice, because ain't no sunshine when she's gone, ain't no love when she's away. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, my love just ain't the same anytime she goes away. And so forth. That is one day when I stop making wines. Or no, maybe I don't have to stop wines. Maybe I can sing here at the Manor House at our Friday parties and stuff like that. But it's not a hidden talent, but it's unpaid for yet, as of yet. I haven't started making money from my voice yet.
You are sitting on a gold mine, and if you're not careful, Nederburg are going to put you into that menu of many events that they do. The singing winemaker. I would come to see a singing winemaker. I'd pay good money to enjoy that. I mean, that's a very special talent that you have, and if you're not feeling it on the night, you just ply them with more wine, and then you still get rave reviews. So that was,
and then they might start paying me the big bucks like I got from my family member.
Exactly. You just bolster your salary with that singing talent of yours. This week we feature a great deal on these 3 Nederburg wines on viathegrapevine.co.za. That's the 2020 Grenache Carignan Rosé, the 2019 Ilroot Cab Sauv Merlot blend, and the 2018 Cab Sauv. You can hit the Wine with Guy button to buy. Otherwise, get along to Liquor City Claremont to buy Nederburg, not just these 3. And if you fancy your luck, then answer the easy question here on the Via The Grapevine page, and you could win a mixed case of 2 Cab Sauvs, 2 Rosés, 2 Edelroots, and a 400 Rand voucher for the Manor restaurant. And if you're lucky enough, Peter might be there and he might sing you into your supper. It's difficult to choose. But Pieter Badenhorst, thank you for your time and passion today, sir. It's been an absolute privilege to chat with you.
Thanks, Guy. Can I change my answer on the wine experience? It's the conversation I've had with you. That must rank. That's going to rank very high in my book.
Oh wow, that's incredibly kind of you, sir. Thank you. Wow, you've made my week. This Via The Grapevine brought to you by Liquor City Claremont. Visit their wine emporium for a journey via the Grapevine.